Hello and welcome to the Church We Dream of. I am very excited about today's conversation. One, because we get to talk about shame, which is not talked about enough and should be unpacked. And two, because our guest is amazing and we're so privileged to have her. Dr. Amanda Anderson is a licensed marriage and family therapist, AAMFT approved supervisor, professor, speaker, and the founder and owner of Anderson Therapy Group. She holds a master's degree and a PhD in marriage and family therapy, and her work, both clinically and academically, centers on attachment, identity, and relational healing. Amanda is the author of hashtag Relationship Goals, the new relationship manual, and her newest book, Shamelessly Redeemed, My Journey from Brokenness to Identity and Purpose. She's also published in Family Therapy magazine on the benefits and risks of the TikTok phenomenon, and her doctoral research focused, I'm so thrilled, on the role of attachment in the dissolution of long-term marriages. I had the privilege of working under Amanda as my clinical supervisor during my licensure, and so much of my work has been shaped by her approach to therapy, especially her insistence on asking me over and over again, what is therapy? That question has stayed with me, and it's made me a better clinician. It's truly an honor to work alongside her in the mental health field. Amanda, I'm really glad that you're here.
Kaya, I'm thrilled that you would have me on. And again, I can take no credit for your work. You are a brilliant therapist, and it was just a joy to get to know you in that framework. And then now, just to get to be friends and colleagues is just a thrill. So thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for having me on. This is so awesome.
We keep finding fun ways to work together, different ideas,
Yeah,
different
I
things,
love it.
which is so great. So tell us a little about what's going on in your life these days, outside of the office, in the office. What is filling your time? What's happening?
Yeah, filling my time is kind of unexpected growth in my practice. Owning a practice is kind of an unexpected adventure that I said yes to really naively, which is good. There's things in my life that I say yes to pretty ignorantly, and I realized later it's good that I was ignorant or naive because if I knew, I probably wouldn't have said yes. So now that one of my yeses, some growth opportunities, trying to connect with clinicians, amazing clinicians such as yourself to just be part of the team. And so that it's kind of these funny things just kind of pop out of the woodwork. So that actually takes a lot of my focus. We've got a team of therapists, we've got a team of administrators. And so really just the day to day, learning how to be a boss, which is never anything I aspired to. So that takes a lot of time. And that probably sounds kind of dry, but what keeps me going is this is for my community. I really want to serve my community well and I want to serve my team well. So that takes most of my time. Otherwise, a creative outlet is I'm actually working on a curriculum for a marriage workshop, which I'm really thrilled about to bring some therapeutic skills to my community, to those folks that will maybe never enter the therapy room. For one reason or another, that maybe sounds like a bad idea. I don't want them to not have access to some healthy relationship skills and tools and insights. So I'm trying to carve more time in my schedule for that as a creative outlet, which is something that just kind of gets my juices flowing. So I'm happy that that's taking up more of my time.
Yes, it does take a lot of time there's a lot of behind the scenes work in running a practice and being a therapist and offering services to the community. So it makes sense because you do a good job that you're putting a lot of behind the scenes work in. So that's
Thank
great.
you.
So today we get to talk about your book that you just published.
Yes. So wild.
It took a while. Shamelessly Redeemed, My Journey from Brokenness to Identity and Purpose. Can you tell us a little bit about your heart behind this book? What inspired you to write it? What was the process
Yeah.
like?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you, I was actually not inspired to write a book. I didn't know I was writing a book when I started writing my story. Simply, I think of it as this is just my story. And it actually started a number of years ago. Probably at least 3 years ago, I really was reminded of actually a word I received during a prayer meeting at a women's discipleship summit. So this retreat that I was at, and it was write your story, write it down. Your story is important. And of course, it took me years to come back to that and to remember that. And so I thought, well, great, God, this is going to be you and me reminding me and encouraging my spirit about my testimony of all you have done for me. So I just started typing on my laptop, really just like free flow thought, not organized whatsoever, and just started. And I was blown away. My soul was encouraged. God, you've done so much healing in my life. Wow. Thank you. I almost don't recall being that person as I was writing these stories and these memories would pop up and I would just start writing them down. And probably about 8 months to a year in, I was like, "Okay, God, what are we doing? Like, this is really great, but what do I do with this? I just have this document now of free thoughts and amazing stories." And he's like, "Go back and listen to that prayer again," because I had recorded in that prayer group. And the piece that I conveniently left out of my memory was, "Other people need to know your story." At that moment, my stomach dropped. It was like, "No, rude, God. That was not the deal. This was not for other people." Yes, this God is just like really rude. What he gets me to do. And so then realized, oh no, this is for other people. This has not just been my diary or my journal. This is a testimony. And of course, I can't argue with God because he's right. But I just was encouraged in my spirit of we overcome by the blood of the Lamb. So Jesus did that work, but by the word of our testimony. And I thought, okay, God, I can buy into this message of overcoming. I want people to overcome. You equipped me and healed me so I could overcome this thing of shame that I carried on my back for years. And so I was like, okay, God, I'm all in. I got to be all in. So that really was that turning point where then it became a book. The process, I got connected with a great coach who helped me make sense out of my mayhem Word document and really be getting a vision for what this was and the flow. And now I'm a terrible editor. I hate editing. And so that was the worst process, and that took longer than writing it, honestly. But it was really a process of obedience and sticking to it even when I didn't see the vision. I lost the vision, lost the passion for it because writing and reading about myself for an extended period of time is truly the last thing I wanted to. So, obedience. It was about obedience.
Something that started as just like a passion project and then it turned into like obedience. Like we're gonna get this done, passion with determination and discipline. Um,
Yes.
that's so funny. Like reading and writing about myself for 3 years, not great. Not what I
It
want to do.
really wasn't. It was so wild too. Like, and it be the experience of reading and writing about myself and this wrestling of this is obedience. This feels like self-promotion. It feels icky. I'm like, who cares? Like, who cares? Everybody is living their life and has a story. And it was really this kind of crazy experience of even fighting through some of the things that I was writing through, I was fighting through. And having some of those feelings of, Amanda, why are you saying this? Should you even be talking about this? And so it really became kind of a refresher experience of some of these things that would cause me to hide. And ultimately that's, the role of shame in my life was it would cause me to step back and to want to hide. And so I just felt that kind of amazing experience echoing itself as I was writing about shame, exposing the shame. Well, shame doesn't like that. And it would push back and try to make me want to hide while I was writing about it. So it was like this really, I don't know, just kind of wild experience of re experiencing some of these old battlegrounds, but knowing that I had the victory. And so I could keep going. But, yeah, so definitely a very spiritual experience, a battle of an experience, even while trying just to get this message out.
Because the book is called Shamelessly Redeemed. What's your definition of shame? You've thought about that for a minute.
Yeah. I feel like, shame really, to me, what I experienced shame to be was really this irredeemable core experience of just feeling like everything I am and everything I did is a mistake and should be hidden and, withdrawing and apologetic for my existence. Just this real down to the core where there's, nothing I could fix. So this just stuck existence of unworthiness. That really it was the shame of feeling unworthy and less than every else, and just the embarrassment and the crushing, shame that came from feeling less than everybody else with no chance of getting out of it. Because the way shame worked in my mind, it was, this is just part of your DNA. This is woven in who you are. Nothing can change it. And so just a really hopeless worldview and mindset about that.
So, shamelessly redeemed is you put those 2 words together because at the beginning you said it's unredeemable, so you're changing the definition of shame
Absolutely.
in your
Yeah.
title.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I prayed, I'm like, Lord, what should this title be? I'm not that creative. God, show me what you would have. And that title popped, Shamelessly Redeemed, because here I can now, without shame, tell my story. I'm going to be shameless about it. I'm going to say, hey, here's the mess. Here's the dumpster fire of my life. We're all a dumpster fire. We burn brighter together, right? So I can, so I can be shameless in telling my tale because God did heal that. And then the story of redemption, that all of those places that shame told me I needed to hide my opinions, my voice, who I am, my body, that really God came in and said, no, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to show you what I said about that from the beginning. And really, let's revamp this perspective. Let's revamp this very, experience. And so I like the idea of being shameless. It's kind of sassy, it's kind of rebellious. And so I'm like, let's, and I want people to join me in this. Let's rebel against shame. Let's rebel and be shameless in our redemption.
Absolutely. When did you start to notice, like, way back in the beginning, maybe the beginning of the book, that you're like, "I can't carry this shame narrative anymore?"
I think there was this point where it was feeling so backed into a corner by shame that either I'm gonna have to, like, disappear. I feel like because I can't hide anymore, like, there so either I'm gonna keep in this direction, backed into a corner, or I've gotta bust out of it, and truly, it was the Holy Spirit coming in and intervening in that place and saying, "We're not doing that anymore. Don't do that anymore. This is not the only way." And so, it was kind of this process of years of functioning this way on my own. I'm really a good one to try things on my own. I'm very independent, which is not always great because sometimes I want to be independent from God, and that is not a good idea. And so this point where I did it on my own, I tried to manage it on my own, camouflage the shame, um, work hard enough, try to earn my worth, earn my value, because then maybe shame, would disappear. And I really came to the end of myself where it didn't matter how much I did, what I did. I couldn't change that internal narrative or that piece inside that I was trying to hide. And so I really came to the end of all my solutions. And there God was like, finally, perfect. You're out of ideas, tag me in. And so then it became this dive of, okay, Lord, show me your way. What do you say? Because I've done what I know and it didn't work.
What did the end look like for you? Like, what was the end of your solutions?
Yeah. The end, it's always a process, and I know people don't love that. I don't love that, but it really is the truth. I think, the end was really years of therapy, years of pressing into the word, and then finally, so I can put it in a nice little bow, but it really was years of different things, of mentorship, hearing from God for myself and through others, choosing to believe God's word, choosing to believe the truth. And so the culmination of that, it honestly it kind of came out of the blue when I realized what had happened. I talk about it in the book. There's this moment where I'm listening to music from, my youth, from the good old, these alternative rock world. And there was this song that I loved, and it was my personal anthem. Well, I found myself not that many years ago listening to music, and this song comes on. And so I know the song, it's memory. But as I was saying the words that really relate to shame and being hidden and irredeemable, I noticed and I remember where I was driving by the Satsett Bulb Farms, and there were daffodils blooming. So if you head down to Grays Harbor, Washington, people, you can go in this spot. And I had this all of a sudden this aha moment of I am not that person anymore. I do not connect with this message. I can say the words, but they're no longer mine. And I began weeping because that was a moment of reality where I did not even realize all the healing that God had done because it had been such a process. But that was a pivotal point in this breaking from shame and redemption from shame of realizing my thoughts are different. My beliefs about myself are different. And wow, God, look at what we did. Look at what you did and that you allowed me to walk in. So it was kind of this I'm in it and not really knowing it until I got kind of a peek into the past. And I thought, wow, that's not me. Okay. Okay, I'm free and I've been walking free.
Yeah, change is gradual. So that's why you have a whole book,
Yeah.
yes, to walk us through this whole journey because we do want it to be like, oh, one day I woke up and I did one thing and everything's different. And
Yeah.
and so
It'd be
it makes
great.
sense that God's like, it takes a whole book to walk people through the tangible journey of
Yeah.
what this looks like.
Yeah.
If you are like, I want to know more, Amanda, tell me more detail. You have to read her book and walk with her through the journey that she's written down for you, so that you can celebrate that. How do you now that you're not compelled by that song, now that it doesn't define you,
Yeah.
how do you discern between conviction and shame on this
Yeah.
side?
I can tell you it's when immediately I start to feel gross about myself, like who I am, and when I want to hide. So I can tell if I'm starting to pull back from people or opportunities or experiences using my voice, and I start to think thoughts that you don't have anything to offer, Amanda. Why do people want to hear from you? I start to that familiar narrative starts to play, and it's about me. It's not about my skills or ability or my,
Mm,
you know, qualifications. If someone asked me to, come speak on, nuclear physics, I should rightly withdraw from that because I have no business. But it's because I don't know anything about that topic, not because I need to hide myself. And so I've become familiar with this tactic that when it becomes about hiding and covering myself and not using my God-given gifts and talents,
yeah,
okay, I see what's happening here. Shame is sneaking in. And conviction, it's because I've done something wrong and I can pinpoint it. Right? Shame is that such a vague thing of something's wrong, you are wrong, but there's no direction. There's no solution. There's no indication of, okay, I can go and rectify this, or I need to repent for this. Whereas conviction, it's because I had a bad attitude. I said something that I shouldn't have said that was, wrong or with a little too much spice or a lot too much spice. Or, there's something that is specific and it was sin. And that Holy Spirit brings to my consciousness. I don't have to search, what is this? What is this just overarching vagueness? And so that's the faithful work of conviction of the Holy Spirit of here it is, repent, turn from it. Versus shame, it's just like, yeah, you're not right. Well, what? Just
yeah,
not helpful. Not
yeah.
helpful, no direction, just slimy.
One of the ways that I check shame in myself is it defining me or versus conviction, which is just an external thing. Like,
So good.
what did I do versus who am I? If it's a I love your definition of like if it's vague and there's no solution, probably shame. If it's
Yeah,
specific and external, could be conviction.
yeah.
And we just clean it up and we move on. Whereas shame is like, this is gonna be forever and it's never gonna
Right.
end.
Totally. Exactly. It's a life sentence. It is a life sentence, and that is just not the truth.
So it sounds like even though you've done all this work with shame, it's not that shame is a silent or absent voice in your life.
Right. Truly. I have accepted, I don't like it, but I have accepted that because shame had been so powerful of a weapon against me, I believe there's spiritual battles that I haven't, the enemy of my soul, Satan, is out to shut me down and to stop me from the good works that God has prepared for me in advance to do. I know that's reality. That's the world we live in, whether we see it or admit it or not. Know that Satan knows what a powerful tool shame is against Amanda. And so that will likely always be in his playbook against me because it worked so well. And so if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I have to be the one that's aware because that will, potentially always be a weak spot in my armor, right? I have a vulnerability to that. And so I just my the flip in my script is being aware and knowing that that's a lie and not buying into that conversation anymore, not engaging at that level of the battle of trying to, you know, do it in my own strength. So I don't love that that's the reality, but I've accepted it and it helps me know that shame will always be painful for me. So don't hold it close. Don't let it in. Don't receive it because it will always do what it's designed to do, which is to take me out.
Is it easier? Like you're saying, like, don't hold shame close. Shame's always going to be there, but I don't have to hold it close. It works. So the enemy's going to keep using it. Is it easier now to not hold it close? Does it hurt less?
Yes, I will say it does. Yes to both of those. It is easier now because I understand the nature of the battle. I understand this was never about me and my unworthiness. This was never about me and my shamefulness. It was all about that was the ploy. That was the ploy against me. And so now, I refuse ownership of shame. I don't own shame. That's not mine. And so it is easier to be like, get off me. Whereas before it was ingrained in me. It, like, had, ties to me. It had connected itself. I had allowed it to connect itself to me. And so it doesn't mean it's not a painful thing when I have, a shame-filled thought. Yeah, it's painful, but now I know that's not me, and it does not hit the same because, it doesn't have a highway to my heart like it used to. There's blockades. No, do not enter. So it really is this thing I can wash off of me, brush off of me, and move on, and say, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. I know what's happening right now. And it has become more efficient and less mysterious.
Can you give us like a practical example? This is how I would have responded to this when shame was embedded in me. This is how I respond.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing is my withdrawal from people or conversations or conflict. Even this, quite honestly, coming on this podcast, I'm like, I do not love this idea of we're going to talk about me. I'm going to be on camera. Ugh. So shame would tell me, don't do it. Shame would tell me, your voice is annoying. What you have to say is boring and not worth it. Your bangs are jacked up today. Get off camera. And that it is just, "Oh, there's nothing here." Shame would get my no. It would get me to say no, and I'll make excuses and back off from platform, back off and remove myself from places where I could share this message in particular or just anything. And so it would win. Shame would win, and I would say, "No, thank you. You're so gracious, but no, that's not for me." And so then the redeemed part, being shamelessly redeemed, is like, let's do it. This is a message that needs to get out. This is God's truth. What a joy, what a privilege to get to share, to get to say, here's what God did. And it really doesn't matter. My packaging does not matter. However I'm feeling about, myself or my hair or whatever this day. This is the package that God put this message in. And so it's my job to bring the message and the rest just comes with it. And that would just not be possible with shame. It would just not, we would not get that far. There would be so many excuses and reasons. I wouldn't have wrote a book to talk about it, So, um,
I'm glad that the book took so long to write. You had so much time to re-engage with this and really build those emotional and spiritual muscles of, I
yes,
really know this narrative well. I know the battle well. I know it so well. And
right.
I don't have to engage with it. But I remember when I asked you, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I could still feel it. I could still feel that shame voice pop up and be like, "You shouldn't do that." And watching you live time navigate, "Oh, yes, I can. I can do this." And
Yes.
it's so beautiful. So I know you do things
Yeah.
independently and on your own, but for people who are listening who may feel like shame's not my thing, but it's my friend's thing, how can they support their friend?
Yeah. Man, I think, see something, say something. If you are saying, hey, there is this external thing that's outside of you and it's taking over, it's controlling you, it's calling the shots, making your decisions in love, speak the truth. Speak the truth and be kind and be prepared, because the thing about shame is the second worst thing to feeling shame is that someone else would see it, because it's scary to think they might see what you see or think you see. And so being able to speak truth of, this isn't who you are. I see there's this thing that's shutting you down, and it's, darkening putting a shadow on your light, but that's not who you are. Remind them of who they are, who you know they are, who deep inside they might hopefully still believe they are, and remind them of that. If they're a person that believes in the Word of God, point to the words in the Bible and say, "This is you. You're not disqualified. Believe what God says about you." If they're not a person of faith and you are, or maybe you are not either, and you think this whole spiritual battle thing is just crazy, speak with love. You love your friend. That love does not come just from you. God has put that in you for your friend, but use that love to just love on them and affirm them, validate who they are, and say, I want to help. How can we get help? Let's go find a therapist. Let's go find, someone else even who can help us to understand, who are you really? Because that even, the other big theme in this book is really about purpose and identity. And shame so happened to be the thing that blocked me for so long from my purpose and my identity. I hope folks will read this that have never experienced shame. I would love that if they don't know what that is like. And I know they're going to have something else that they are struggling with that is blocking their purpose and that is keeping them from living out who they are in their full identity. That's a piece of it too, that maybe it doesn't look like shame, but maybe you see your friend isn't, walking in their purpose, or is denying who they are, or doesn't get how awesome they are. you know, Say something, do something, be with them.
I can just imagine because 'cause I'm watching you from the outside, not inside your mind, and I'm like,
Right.
people are gonna be confused. I imagine people are confused listening to you talk that like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so unsure and I'm not and I don't know because they heard your fantastic bio and they're like, "She's doing all this incredible stuff." And so one of the things about shame is like we're talking about this person who maybe doesn't have shame, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Well, there still might be something because shame is really good at being invisible. That's its job. Its
Yeah.
job is to
Yes.
hide." So, if you have a friend who you can see they're wrestling with shame, call it out,
Yeah.
but also don't be afraid to pause and ask yourself, "Wait a minute, am I is shame invisible in me? Is it motivating some of my actions?" How would one know? How would one know if shame is motivating them?
Yeah. I think, for me, I can speak from my experience. I had this drive to prove myself and to earn. And you're right, it is very confusing. And people, will look at me like, are you making this up? And that's part of why I had to write the story of like, look, I get from the outside, it looks one way, but you have got to know it is different on the inside. Because for me, it was to do my way out of shame. I'm going to accomplish, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to do everything I possibly can. If you have friends that cannot rest, if you have friends that are living beyond their means when it comes to energy and capacity, they are running themselves ragged and they're doing amazing great things, but they're kind of, they probably won't show you that they're dying inside, but if it just like they're overachievers and they can never stop and they don't know how to rest, that it's never enough. That was for me, an accomplishment was never enough. I would get to a goal, I would think that would be, and there always had to be something else. And so, I'm not going to say that certainly not everyone who is successful is going to be dealing with this. But if you notice with your friend that there's, this drive that can never end, and there's a chaos to it, and there's a hecticness to it, um, that for me was an indicator, because, nothing was worth stopping. I had to keep going. So if you've got, it might look like they're out there doing everything. It might look like they don't come out of their house, or they don't answer your calls, or they stop coming to things. It can be such a broad spectrum, which you're right. That's why it's so tricky, because it's invisible. So my hope would be that as people are listening to us and our conversation, and if they go and read the book, that it would just start a conversation of, "Hey, I read this crazy story from this woman, who was just out in Washington somewhere," that it would just start a conversation and just see what resonates with you, and that's a piece that in the book, there are some of the self-application pieces. That was such a great tip that my writing coach suggested because it's not enough. I don't want this book to just be about me. I would never have written it if it was truly just about me. It's about you. It's about us all. So maybe start some conversations of here's what resonated with me. What about you, friend? And see, you never know what may come up. We just have to be in this together because that is a huge also scheme of shame is that isolation and it's just me. I'm the only one who's messed up.
Right. And I love that one of the things that we're kind of running into here is that shame can look really successful on the outside.
Yeah.
And so maybe our idea of shame is a coward, quiet person.
Right.
That's not necessarily true. I like your definition of rest. If you can't rest or if your friend can't rest, I know that that was something that the end of our time together in my supervision, I had to notice for myself, am I being motivated by shame or am I in terms of for shame's like external validation of my worth? That
Yeah. Yeah.
was the wrestling. And so you have to pause. You have to be still long
Yeah.
enough to let that running pause and allow the Holy Spirit's voice to come in and then get a new identity. So the ability to slow down and rest. If you're assessing, you're like, what am I sick? Am I motivated by shame? If you're
Yeah.
slowing down and resting and getting direction from God and accomplishing great things,
Some.
probably not. But if you're just jumping from one thing to the next and you're not slowing down and asking, why am I doing this? What is the real reason? Then maybe. And
Yeah.
so you can just get those practical questions for you in Amanda's book that she has studiously put together through a life's work of study on battling shame and also following her purpose and identity. If there was, you said you wanted to start a conversation, but when someone's finished reading this book, what do you hope that they experience for themselves? What
Yeah.
do you hope they walk away understanding?
Yeah. I think ultimately I would love them to find freedom in these pages. I think my dream would be that they go through these pages, they connect with the stories, they laugh a little, and then also find what is the thing that is it shame? Has it been something else, but that has been smothering them, that has been stopping them? That there's even just one thing that I'm going to walk away from that self-deprecation, or I'm gonna walk away from that mindset that I'm not enough or that I don't have purpose or that I have to be different to be worthy. That would be my dream that they could because again, I want it to be done, right? I want one and done. So I would love this book to be the thing that sets people free, but I also realized I had to have a process. Most of us do. So I think my smaller hope would be that this sows a seed of doubt in those ingrained thought processes that are keeping people stuck. That it could be an alternative narrative that maybe they don't fully buy into. Maybe they say, Amanda, that's great for you. Yeah, I believe you. Awesome. You go. But that's not for me. But what if? What if? So if just a seed of doubt that what if I'm not, this terrible person or this, I have no skills or, what if that wasn't true? Like maybe they can't fully buy into it. But what if her story really is my story? Then that would be a huge answer to prayer. That's what I would want to come from this of just open up possibilities of I've been living this way my whole life. I've been thinking this way my whole life. What if I was wrong? What if there is a different way? I would love it.
Oh, that's a terrifying question to ask. What if I'm not a terrible person? I know it sounds silly to say, but it is because it implies that God has something important, special,
Yes.
that He has prepared for us to do. And if we don't feel worthy of that, like that's a very scary thought to consider.
Yeah.
Everyone should read it. Everyone should be asking what if. Everyone should be learning about shame, whether it's visible or invisible, whether it's in yourself or in other
Yeah.
people, because the secret sauce to shame is as soon as we start talking about it, it has no power.
That's right.
And so
That's
this
right.
book can start a conversation. It can turn your attention away from shame, through shame, and into your purpose, which is the goal, which is the goal.
That's right.
Let's all move forward together.
Yes, please.
Do you have anything you'd like to add before we wrap up for today?
Man, I'm just so appreciative of this conversation, Kai. I'm so grateful that you're using your platform to just help shine a light on shame and break people free. I think I would challenge and encourage your listeners is do it scared. I love to be brave. I love to be courageous, but sometimes courage is just doing it scared. Maybe be a little naive, like maybe don't think it all the way through like me. Maybe say yes to the thing that takes you away from shame and do it scared. It will be okay. Find your people who cheer you on, who see the parts of you that you can't quite see yet. They actually see who you really are. So find your people, be with them, and do it scared.
Do it scary. It's never gonna stop being scary, but it will be more fun. It will be more fun.
Yes.
If
And free. It can
and
be
free.
fun and we can be free. Yeah.
If all you do today, as you're ending this episode, is start asking what if, that's more than enough. If you want to take another step, I'm going to link Amanda's book in these show notes so you can order it. You can order it as a vote of confidence for her and encouraging her work. You can order it so that you can set it on your coffee table and be reminded to ask what if, or you could read the whole thing. You could give it to a friend. There's so many ways. You could share the link with someone, continue the conversation about shame in your circles. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Amanda, for being here, giving us your valuable time and hard fought wisdoms. We will see everyone again soon on
My
this
pleasure.
podcast.
Thanks, Kaya.